Mushrooms make for a delicious meal, and foraging for them in the wild significantly enhances the experience. However, foraging for mushrooms is a challenging task. For instance, it requires practice to identify a morel growing in the forest. But a delicious meal will be your reward for persevering. It's crucial to decide which mushroom type you're trying to find, so you know the terrain in which to search. So, for example, if you're hunting morels, you'll need to search in a forest where dead trees have fallen. Also, morels are usually found in spring and, typically, in colder regions. When you understand that, you can be in the best place at the right time. Of course, you'll enjoy your foraging much better if you have persistence and patience, as previously mentioned. Before you start foraging, you need to appreciate that many mushrooms have poisonous counterparts. For example, the morel has a counterpart called a false morel. You need to ensure that a real morel is not a false morel. Thankfully, there are usually simple methods to determine which mushrooms are poisonous or edible. Morels, for instance, are hollow inside when you cut them open. But false morels are not. Chanterelles do not grow in clusters, however, poisonous jack-o'-lantern mushrooms do. The more you know about both edible and poisonous mushrooms, the much easier it will be to tell them apart. There are many types of poisonous mushrooms, but do not let that prevent you from foraging. If you stick to the fungi you know are safe, you'll be fine. Many poisonous mushrooms have an unpleasant, bitter taste. If you eat something you believe is poisonous, immediately spit it out, flush your mouth out with water, and contact poison control authorities. Unfortunately, not all poisonous mushrooms have a discernible unpleasant taste. Indeed, some are quite tasty. That's why it's so important to be sure about what you're consuming before ingesting it. A couple of the more common poisonous mushrooms, other than the false morel, found in the wild are death caps, which are quite plentiful and can be fatal. Just a half cap is all it takes to cause permanent damage to the liver. These mushrooms grow practically anywhere, from big cities to the middle of the forest. Death caps have a thin white stalk and a circular, silver cap. Destroying angels are a lot more lethal than death caps, as they trigger possible harmful damage to the liver and kidneys, usually within 5 hours after ingestion. These mushrooms have a solid white cap with gills, and a narrow white stem. Luckily, there are many types of edible mushrooms found in the wild. Some of the more common species of edible mushrooms are white buttons, creminis, morels, truffles, and portobellos. White buttons, creminis, and portobellos belong to the same species of mushroom, but just at different stages in the maturation process. So, if you discovered white buttons when you were trying to find portobellos, simply let the white buttons mature a bit longer before you pick them. Truffles are difficult to discover but are often worth quite a lot if you decide to sell them. Foraging for mushrooms is a challenging and enjoyable way to discover delectable fungi. If you want to approach your foraging enthusiastically, get hold of a comprehensive guidebook about mushrooms. A guide will allow you to do your research ahead of time. Plus, it will enable you to more fully recognize the differences between poisonous and edible mushrooms, making for a happier experience. And, at the end of your foraging experience, the most enjoyable part is sitting down to a delicious meal of recently harvested mushrooms. So, put on your boots, do your research and get out into the fresh air on a foraging trip.